Hey guys, okay, so I have been reading a lot recently, and I've loved it, I've really enjoyed it, and I'm just in such a reading mood, which is so great because I haven't been in this kind of mood in so long, and I think it's because, for about a month, I literally didn't have time to read during the day, and then by the time I got home at night, I was so tired that I couldn't focus on reading. Like, I needed to watch mindless TV, or I needed to do something where I wasn't using my brain. And so I think because of that, I ended up missing reading so much that now I'm just like, screw TV, I just want to read, like, that's all I want to do, which is so great. I'm loving it. And I finally have time, which is so great. So I have two book reviews for you guys today. I decided to do these reviews separate from my monthly wrap-up. I'll still, like, sum up what I felt about them in my monthly wrap-up, but I really loved both of these books, and this first one that I'm going to do, I have so much to say about it that it's going to have to be in its own video, and then I'll talk about the other book in another video, and that one's just going to be like a quick rave because I really enjoyed it, but there really isn't much to say about it because it's a sequel. But this one, I have a lot to say, and I'm going to do kind of a spoiler-free synopsis section first, and then I'm going to go into spoiler details, and I'm also going to talk about vaguely what I liked about it in the spoiler-free section so that you guys kind of get a feel for why I liked it, but then I promise not to spoil any details until I go into the spoiler section, because I do want to compare a little bit the book and the miniseries, because the miniseries is one of my favorites. And that book is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. Basically, this book was written in 1854, 1855, and I think it was serialized. I think that's why it was written over the course of a year, because it was published, maybe not chapter by chapter, but I think it was published over time, and that's why it says that it was published over the period of a year. And this was during England's Industrial Revolution, when this was published, and their revolution was at least half a century before America's. Oh gosh, I wish I remembered, like, the year that the American one started, because, you know, I live here, so I should know this, and we learned it probably every year in school for about 10 years, but, yeah, it's at least half a century beforehand, if not 60 or 70 years before. So, yeah, that is a huge part of this book. This book is about this woman called Margaret Hale, who has grown up mostly in London, with her aunt and her cousin, and her parents live in this small southern town called Helston, that her father is a parson there. And, I don't know, it doesn't really say why she grows up in London, but I think it's because her parents wanted her to be brought up in society, instead of this, like, small, quaint southern town, because, I don't know, I guess they felt like she wouldn't really be able to have much company there. But she loves Helston. Like, she goes to visit all the time when she's still living in London. And then when she is about 19, I think, her cousin, they're only a few years apart, but I don't think it ever says how close they are in age, but her cousin gets married, so Margaret then moves back in with her parents in Helston, and she is so excited because it is her favorite place on earth. And it's just, I don't know, like, the way it's described, it's really picturesque, and, like, the parsonage is beautiful, it has gorgeous gardens, and it's sunny all the time, and it's warm, and it just sounds really cool. But yeah, so she loves it there. But then her father, comes to her and tells her that he's basically had an attack of conscience, where the church is concerned. And so he uproots them and takes them to Milton in the north, because he decides he cannot be a parson anymore, or he would be going against his own conscience. I guess. So yeah, they move to Milton, and I think her father decides, I don't think, I know that her father decides to be a tutor there, and Milton is a mill town, that's why Gaskell called it Milton, and I'm not really sure if Helston is a real place, but Milton was a fictionalized town that Gaskell created that she based off of Manchester at that same time. And so then they get to Milton, and the reason it's called Milton is because there's all these mills, and they meet this man who is a mill owner called, his name is John Thornton, and he and Margaret immediately clash because she has just had a complete culture shock coming up to this place. It is smoggy, the people are really gruff and busy all the time, and it's really crowded, and people just don't seem very friendly, and it seems like you would just get sick all the time, and it's colder, and yeah, so she immediately starts forming all of these, starts having all these presumptions about people and the way they behave up there, because it's definitely, like, the manners and the customs up there are definitely very different than how they are in the South. But then when there are things that are the same, she gets kind of surprised and taken aback by that. I don't know. But yeah, so she and John Thornton immediately clash and start butting heads, especially because a big part of the book is a social commentary on the social, like, on the class differences, because a lot of the characters are mill workers, and because they're mill workers, they get sick all the time because they get cotton in their lungs, and it just basically fills their lungs until they can't breathe, and they die from it, and it's super sad. One of the main characters actually is really sick and ends up dying from this, and I'm not going to say who, but it's just so sad to read about. And also, it's not only that they get sick, but also the machinery is very dangerous, and people get hurt, and then they can't work. And this is really serious because it's not only adults that this happens to, but also a lot of the workers are children, because these people are literally so poor that as soon as their children are big enough to be able to work in the mill, they have to bring them, even girls, to work in these mills. And it's just super sad. So then, yeah, so you have that happening, and then there's the clash between the workers and the mill owners, because there's this huge idea, and I'm sort of stealing this from Ronlit, so I will link her video down below, and I will 100% give her credit, but she was talking about the fact that there is this idea in the book about how the mill owners, it's a question of whether the mill owners see the mill workers as human or not, and the argument in most of the book, especially from Margaret's perspective, is that they don't see them as human, and that's another reason why she and John Thornton clash, is because she is basically on the side of the working man, because she's like, you know, these people are less fortunate than you, so you need to treat them really respectfully, not just like humans, but you need to be courteous and respectful of them, and it's just this huge argument, I guess, between the two of them, debate. And so yeah, half the book is Margaret and Thornton's relationship, and half the book is this social commentary between the mill workers and the mill owners, and that class struggle, and the consequences of that struggle. And it was really interesting. One of my favorite things about this book, my favorite thing is obviously the romance, but another thing that I just found incredibly interesting and really cool is that romance is not the entirety of this book. This book just has a huge part of it that is a social commentary, so I feel like a lot of people Like, if you like to read classics, but you aren't really big into romance classics, I still think you would find this enjoyable, because it does have that great part of it that makes you totally forget about the romance part, even though that is still totally my favorite part. And another thing about this book is that a lot of people compare it to Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and I knew that going in, especially because since I'd seen the miniseries, I already knew the whole story, and it is quite a bit like Pride and Prejudice as far as Margaret and John's relationship. They have a very Pride and Prejudice, Lizzie Darcy, butt heads relationship, but to be quite honest, I love Austen. She's one of my favorite authors, and I love all of her books, including Pride and Prejudice, but this is a better version of that. I don't know, John Thornton is just, to me, a much better character than Fitzwilliam Darcy, and I know I might get figuratively pelted for that, but it's true, and also Ronnie totally agrees with me, and that's another reason why I will link her video, is she was like, Thornton beats Darcy, and I was like, yes, so true. And also another reason why I just like this better is because, you know, it does have that whole social commentary part, and I feel like Pride and Prejudice does talk about social issues, but not, oh gosh, the romance just overshadows all of that. Like, it does talk about social stuff and the money, but mostly it's about the romance, and I'm not saying I don't like it, I really do, but to me, this is just better because it has a lot more, not depth, that's not the right word, just a lot more to it, I guess, I don't know. So, yes, I loved this a lot, and while we're still on the spoiler-free section, another thing that I really loved about it is Elizabeth Gaskell's ability to write descriptions, because she was so good at writing descriptions of people's feelings, especially John Thornton. The way she worded his thoughts and feelings, not only in conversation with other characters, but also when he's just thinking to himself, was amazing. It was so good. I was sending quotes from this book to one of my friends because she's seen the miniseries and loves it, but she hasn't read the book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, just listen to this quote, you need to read this, and it was wonderful. So, yeah, I feel like that's as much as I can go into without spoiling, so basically, 5 out of 5 stars, go pick this up if you have not read it. Now we're going to get into the spoiler section, and I'm going to try to make this really quick, because I feel like I've talked forever. Yeah, I've talked for like 13 minutes in the spoiler-free section. But yeah, spoilery section, if you haven't read this, please go away. I still care about you, but go away until you've read it. And this is just going to be like a comparison of what I thought the miniseries did better, even though I still love the book so much. Basically, the proposal scenes between Margaret and John, like the first one, I like very nearly equally in the book and the miniseries. It's worded very differently, but I still like both scenes. The only thing that I like slightly better about the show is that Richard Armitage's emotions, that man's ability to display emotions is beautiful, and that scene, just every time I watch it, it tears me up. I'm like, oh my gosh, you are just, he's amazing. That's all, he's just amazing. So yeah, I did like it slightly better in the show, but it's equally, like, the wording and the dialogue is just great in both. Character-wise, I like John Thornton equally in both the book and the show, and I think the same goes for Margaret. I might like her, I don't know if I liked her slightly better in the show. No, I like her equally in both. Same with Frederick. Frederick is Margaret's brother, and yeah, I really like him in both. Her mom, I didn't really like in either. I was pretty indifferent to her mother, and sometimes she even bothered me, and I was pretty indifferent to Dixon. Her cousin Edith, I was kind of okay with in the show. In the book, I don't like her, because in the show you kind of see that she's sort of selfish and just kind of in her own world, but she takes that to a very extreme extent in the book. It's almost embarrassing. Like, if I was Margaret, I would basically be very embarrassed to be related to this girl, because she doesn't, I mean, I understand, like, if you're happy, then you don't really take other people's misfortunes into your own account, but that's still, no, I actually don't understand that. I was trying to see it from her point of view, but I really don't. Like, it's one thing for you not to want your happiness to be ruined, but it's something completely different when you completely disregard other people's misfortunes, and that's what she does. She acts like other people's misfortunes are an inconvenience to her, and that just, it made me so mad. So yeah, I didn't really like Edith in the book. I didn't like her Aunt Shaw, Margaret's Aunt Shaw, Edith's mother, because she was worse than Edith. And Captain Lennox, I was pretty indifferent to. Henry Lennox, I have issues with that man. I don't really like him. He's just super weird and possessive of Margaret, and like, oh, why didn't you marry me? That's ridiculous that you didn't marry me. You should be mine. And it's like everyone in her London family wanted them to get together, so, like, he thought that because of that, they should be together, and he's like, oh, she loves me, when she really doesn't, and it was super bothersome, and it didn't seem at all like he really loved her. It just seemed like he wanted to be with her because everyone else wanted it, and that's just, it was pretty ridiculous. I didn't really like it at all. And who else? Okay, her dad, I did like her dad. I did have some problems with him at some points, but I did actually really enjoy him. Her godfather, Mr. Bell, is one of the best characters in the whole book, and also in the miniseries. I thought, the guy who played him in the miniseries was wonderful. The two characters that I thought, the miniseries improved upon greatly were Bessie and Nicholas Higgins. It helps greatly that they are played by Brendan Coyle and Anna Maxwell Martin, who are both amazing. I love Brendan Coyle with all my heart. But yeah, they did those characters so much better, because in the book, Bessie is dying, and that's all she focuses on. Every single time Margaret is over, all Bessie talks about is dying, and how she's looking forward to dying because her whole life has been crap, basically, and she talks about the Book of Revelations pretty much all the time, and it's so incredibly sad that her life has been that bad that she's excited to die, or not excited, but that she's content to die. But in the show, she is, like, she knows she's gonna die, but she's like, okay, I'm still going to enjoy the time I have left, and I'm going to enjoy my friends, and when I talk to my friends, I'm gonna talk about happy things and not focus on dying. And I thought that that was so much better. And also, Nicholas in the book is really, really harsh to Margaret, like much harsher than he is in the show. In the show, you see it a little bit in the beginning, but then they're good. In the book, he's not really all that sweet to her until, like, I don't know, a third before the book ends, and also he drinks a lot in the book, and that really bothered me, because that does not happen in the show. it's to the point where Bessie's last words are, "Keep father from drink." And for those to be your last words on Earth, that's incredibly depressing. So yeah, I definitely liked both of them a lot better in the show. And also there were some scenes that were added in the show that I thought made the story flow a little bit better. Not necessarily that it wasn't good in the book, it was. I didn't think it was bad at all, but I just really enjoyed the scenes that they added into the show. So yeah, I think that's all. All of my comparisons. But yeah, I love the show. I love the book. The show is probably has a little bit more of my heart because that's what I saw first, and I just love Richard Armitage and Brendan Coyle so much. But yeah, this book is amazing, and it's 5 out of 5 stars, and you should go pick it up if you haven't read it yet. And I'm sorry that I've talked for 20 minutes. Hopefully this will upload, and hopefully you guys won't mind watching this. But yeah, I love this book so much. So much. Go read it. Thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.